Live breaking news, Nez Nation. Steve the Pitbull Sadow, Trump's lead defense attorney in the Cash Money G Fani Willis 2020 sham election interference case, just filed their opening brief for the appellate president, Donald J. Trump, in the interlocutory appeal. So that's the case, Donald Trump against the state of Georgia for the appeals court. Now, I'm going to explain everything very simply, very clear cut. This is all you need to watch to stay up to date on everything that's happening with Fani Willis. I'm going to explain everything. What's happening now, what's going to happen potentially in the future, what do we have to look forward to in this Fani Willis disqualification hearing? Is she going to get disqualified? Is the appeal court going to hear this, not hear this? I've got it all for you. Now, this actual briefing is over 64 pages long, okay? So if you want to read this full briefing and you're like a legal mind and you're like, Nez, I want the real deal, I want to read it word for word, I will leave a link for that in the description and in the show notes down below, and you can read it. However, for the sake of everybody else, including myself, I have pretty much broken this down, and we're going to look at it right here. I have broken this down through my own due diligence and my own notes, and we're going to go through everything right now. Okay, so check this out. So first, what is an opening brief? What does that mean? What's the purpose of an opening brief? So an opening brief is to persuade the court. The primary goal is to convince the appellate court that the trial court made errors. Okay, so that trial court would be Judge Pussycat McAfee, where he found evidence and odor of mendacity, but yet he didn't disqualify Cash Money G. He disqualified Nathan Wade, or actually he gave them an option. Of course, Cash Money G stayed. But that basically didn't work out. And then Sadow, who I think is the GOAT, Steve Sadow, who is Trump's lead defense attorney, filed an interlocutory appeal, which is a appeal based on very specific charges like forensic misconduct. I'll explain everything in a second. And the appeals court granted the appeal. And so here we are right now. It also guides the appeal, so it sets the framework for the appeal, outlining the key arguments and issues the court will need to consider. It also provides legal and factual context, so it helps the appellate judges understand the context, background of the case, including legal principles and facts involved. Essentially, in layman's terms, what this means is that an opening brief is essentially just a detailed written argument. It explains why the appellant believes the trial court made mistakes. Why does Sadow and the other co-defendants, Miss Merchant's client Michael Rowan is involved in this, Harrison Floyd that we had on the show, so many other people are involved in this appeal. And that trial that took place back in early 2024, February, March, this is the trial that Sadow and company need to explain to the appeals court why they made mistakes. So it includes facts, legal arguments, and references to laws and prior cases. The goal, this is the ultimate goal right here, is to persuade the appellate court to change or overturn the trial court's decision. Very cut and dry. So let's put this in context, right? So in terms of President Trump's case, what does this mean exactly? So the introduction, the overview of the case against Cash Money G, Fani Willis, the legal arguments, reasons why the trial court should have dismissed the case and disqualified the DA, Fani Willis. What are the facts? Description of Willis's alleged misconduct and relationship with Nathan American Pie Wade, who's been making an absolute fool of himself on national television. Woo! If you missed that video, you got to check it out. Legal issues, I did it. It's on my channel. Legal issues like forensic misconduct and conflict of interest. Standard of review, how the appellate court should evaluate the trial court's decision. And then the conclusion, the ultimate goal is the request for the appellate court to dismiss the case entirely and disqualify Willis. So that's what they can do. They can actually do this. The brief also sets the stage for the appeal, aiming to convince the appellate judges that the trial court made significant errors requiring correction. So here's the breakdown. The filing of the brief. President Trump's legal team has submitted an opening brief to the Georgia Court of Appeals, which I just explained what that is. Again, in small, it's essentially just a detailed written argument, okay? Very detailed. So it's over 60 pages long. You know, Sadow worked his butt off because he is the GOAT, and it is worth a read. I would highly recommend. Again, I'll leave that link. I promise I'll leave the link to it in the show notes and the description if you want to check that out, okay? The key arguments in the brief. This is really big right here. What are the key arguments in the brief? Forensic misconduct. So we talked about this plenty of times during the last couple of months that we've been following this case very closely. The brief claims that DA Fani Willis engaged in improper behavior by making public statements and taking actions that prejudiced the case against Trump. Remember, everybody is due to their fair and impartial trial. Everybody is entitled to their right to due process. And Cash Money G completely ripped out the shreds. The appearance of impropriety. This is a big one. We've been hearing this a lot throughout this case. The brief highlights a significant conflict of interest and ethical violations due to District Attorney Willis's personal and financial relationship with former Special Assistant DA Nathan American Pie Wade. Oh, and by the way, wait till you hear. Oh, I thought it was so eloquently articulated by Sadow, his actual full statement on this briefing. It was a really quick paragraph. He posted on X. Follow me on X at Professor Nez. I'm Professor Nez everywhere. It was fantastic. Specific misconduct allegations. So let's talk about each specific conduct, right? So public statements. So Miss Willis made public inflammatory remarks that could bias the jury and public opinion. Remember, you can't do that. You can't talk about a case that is ongoing. You can't talk about a case where it's not only is it super high profile, but where the defendant could get a polluted jury pool, especially by you, the district attorney, where Judge McAfee even admitted himself, as Sadow pointed out very forthrightly, district attorneys are held to a higher standard. Not only should there not be any impropriety, there shouldn't even be a molecule of an appearance of impropriety. Sadow also talks about the personal relationship. Willis had a romantic relationship with Nathan Wade. That right there is a direct conflict of interest. Financial impropriety. We don't talk too much about this, but this is huge. Wade, who was financially benefiting from taxpayer money, paid for expenses related to his relationship with Willis. Unreal. So the legal remedies that are sought, they want two things that are really, really big. They want dismissal of the case. Trump's team argues that the trial court should have dismissed the indictment due to the misconduct and ethical violations. If we don't take ethical and misconduct violations seriously, imagine the dangerous precedent, because every case sets a precedent. So every future case, every future prosecutor, every future legal action or legal charges that are brought upon somebody, you got to understand this affects all of us. It doesn't just affect the president or the 18 co-defendants or the absolute abomination of the reputation and ethos of Fulton County, Atlanta, and the state of Georgia, which is, I think, irreparable. But this damages us as American citizens. This affects all of us. That's why this is so prescient. You have to pay attention to these things. Otherwise, if we don't take this seriously, somebody can say, well, I'm citing case Trump versus state, Trump versus the people of Georgia, where there were similar concerns, and yet the judge didn't do anything about it. That gives leeway. It sets a dangerous precedent. If that doesn't make sense, let me know in the comments. Disqualification of DA Willis. The brief insists that District Attorney Willis and her office should be removed from prosecuting the case due to her behavior and the appearance of impropriety, which he's 100% correct. Now, check out his statement here, which is directly contingent upon this. Trump's legal team expresses optimism that the Court of Appeals will agree with their arguments and rule in their favor. Listen to Sadow's statements. I want to bold this because this is This is phenomenal. This happened literally today, June 24th, in the year of our Lord, 2024. 22,000. Feels like that sometimes. Steve Sadow's statement. President Trump has filed his opening brief in the Georgia Court of Appeals. This is so good by Sadow right here. Check this out. The brief persuasively argues that the trial court should have dismissed the case and disqualified DA Willis for her forensic misconduct and the appearance of impropriety between her and former Special Assistant DA Wade, who was her lover and taxpayer-funded financial benefactor. Wow, don't you just love, I just love the balls of Steve Sadow. I know that sounds absolutely terrible. As they leave my mouth, I feel a little bit icky. But it's something I've been expressing time and time again on this channel, in our organization, in our advocacy. We need balls back in this country. We need to call it what it is. We need to call out what's happening in our border, what's happening in our criminal justice system, what's happening in our economy, what's happening at the grocery store, what's happening at the gas pump, what's happening in these asinine, absolutely egregious cases where kids are being mutilated and engaging in puberty blockers before the age of consent without any long-term understanding of the long-term healthcare ramifications. We need to call things what they are. We need to get our country back. I love the fact that Sadow said this. We are optimistic. I want to read that again. Because it's so good. The brief persuasively argues that the trial court should have dismissed the case and disqualified DA Willis for her forensic misconduct and the appearance, this is my favorite part, of impropriety, because it's so true, between her and former Special Assistant DA Wade, who was her lover and taxpayer-funded financial benefactor. Remember, he took her on vacations. He was paid an exorbitant salary that he was wholly unqualified for, over $800,000, almost $1 million of taxpayer-funded money right to his pocket. And he took advantage of that and literally bought her MacBooks, bought her expensive things, took her to Aruba, Jamaica. Ooh, I'm gonna take you to prison in an orange suit. Fani Cash Money Wade. I just called her Fani Cash Money Wade. We are optimistic, again, back to the statement, I apologize. We are optimistic that the court will favorably decide the appeal in our favor. I love the confidence. I love the conviction. I love the articulation. Let me know in the comments what you think of that. Now, what is the big takeaway here? So what could potentially happen here? What will the appellate court take away from the opening brief? So key takeaways from the appellate court. The summary of alleged errors, the appellate court will understand the specific errors President Trump's legal team claims the trial court made, particularly related to prosecutorial misconduct and the appearance of impropriety. Factual context. The brief details facts about Willis's conduct and relationship with Nathan Wade, which the appellant believes prejudiced the case. Legal arguments and precedents. The court will see how the appellant's arguments are grounded in legal precedents and ethical standards, particularly focusing on forensic misconduct and conflict of interest. They're going to really pay attention to all of the evidence, all the precedents, ethical standards, violations, to make sure, is this a legitimate concern, or are they just trying to postpone and delay the case? So they're going to weigh that. And I believe Sadow is 100% accurate. I think they're going to rule in his favor. I think they should. Otherwise, why did they take this case? Remedies sought. The appellate court will understand that the appellant is seeking the disqualification of DA Willis and the dismissal of the indictment based on the arguments requested. The brief outlines specific relief being requested, including the disqualification of Willis and her office and the dismissal of the case. So the initial consideration, what's going to happen, the decision-making on the brief is, what's going to happen is these appellate judges will read it thoroughly to understand the arguments. They will review the trial's court record, including transcripts. They're going to go over everything that was presented in that disqualification case. They're going to respond. The appellate will file a response brief countering the appellate's arguments, which the court will consider. That's Fani Willis. So this is Steve Sadow's opening brief. Fani Cash Money G, she's always late. She never files it on time. She's going to file hers probably, God knows, a month from now, 2 months from now, because she doesn't care. And she thinks this is all just trivial. It's trivial that I took advantage of the people of Fulton County. It's trivial that I took advantage of the people of Georgia. It's trivial that I took advantage of $30 million in funding without any oversight that Bill Couser at the State Senate Committee found. She doesn't care. Decision-making process, what does that entail? Oral arguments. After reviewing the briefs, the court may schedule oral arguments where attorneys from both sides can present this case. Now, oral arguments were set for October. Now, there is a potentiality, I don't think it's going to happen, it's very highly unlikely, that the appellate judges could make a decision without oral arguments. Highly, highly unlikely. Remember, Cash Money G. Fani Willis threw a Hail Mary trying to appeal to the appellate judges saying, you should just dismiss this. This is ridiculous. This appeal is completely ridiculous. It's preposterous. And she tried to cite some real nebulous cases that didn't have any grounding. That's not going to happen. But there is a small potentiality. We'll talk about that in just a second. The appellate judges, typically a panel, this is really interesting, will discuss the case amongst themselves. So it's not just one judge. It's 3 judges. And they'll consider the briefs, the trial record, and the oral arguments. And then they'll draft an opinion. One judge will draft an opinion. This is interesting. Based on the majority view, which is then reviewed and possibly revised by other judges on the panel. The possibility of decision based solely on the briefs. Yes, it's possible. The appellate court could make a decision based solely on that and the trial record if they find that the written arguments sufficiently address all relevant issues. We know the Sadow is the GOAT. We know he did. Oral arguments. In some cases, oral arguments are deemed necessary, and this is what I'm heavily leaning on. If the briefs clearly and comprehensively cover the issues, though they can still be requested by either party or the court itself. I think it's going to happen. We're going to live stream it. Make sure you follow. Make sure you subscribe. Potential outcomes. Affirmation. So the appellate court may affirm the trial court's decision, meaning they may find no reversible error and the original ruling stands. It could also be a reversal, right? The court may reverse. This is what everybody I think will happen. If they agree with the significant errors made, they could result in disqualifying D.A. Willis and possibly dismissing the indictment altogether. Remand. The court might remand the case back to the trial court. Could you imagine that? They might be like, you know what, we're throwing this back to you guys. You guys need to do everything all over again, which would be insane. And imagine if Cash Money G gets called to the stand again. Holy macadamia. Terrence Bradley, Nathan American Pie Wade, Judge Barnes. Oh my God, it would just be insanity. So in conclusion, the appellate court thorough review takes a comprehensive look at the arguments and evidence presented in the briefs alongside the trial court to ensure a fair and just review. The decision basis, while the court can decide based solely on the briefs, oral arguments and further deliberations often provide additional clarity and insight before a final decision is reached. So I have really, I'm not going to go over this. I'm just going to kind of look at you guys because it's really all about the complexity of the case. But I highly, highly think that there is no chance that they're not going to hear oral arguments. I think it is very, very likely that the appeal judges, the appellant judges are going to definitely want to hear oral arguments. Given the status, the high profileness of this case, the fact that it's the first time a former president, is being tried like this, obviously the ridiculous hush money trial, I think that's going to be overturned by the Supreme Court, if anything, because it was an absolute sham. Everybody knows that. This is really historic. So I don't think it would be in the best interest of them, the state of Georgia, the participants, the defendants, the state, and definitely the American public for them to dismiss any oral arguments. They're going to want to hear everything, and we're going to live stream everything. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is you are currently up to speed of what's happening in the Cash Money G saga. Holy macadamia nut. This is your one-stop shop, y'all. You don't need to go anywhere. Please tap that thumbs up because it helps us. I don't care. It's not about vanity. It helps us push our videos to more people. So please tap that thumbs up right now. And then let me know in the comments, what do you guys think of all this? What are your thoughts? Do you actually think that this brief is going to bring about some real change? Do you think the appellate court is going to make a different decision than Judge Pussycat McAfee, who went so by the book? Let me know in the comments. I can't wait to hear from you. Let me know what you'd like to see. I'd also like to hear that too. If you made it this far, don't forget to sign up for our free newsletter in the comments, description, and show notes down below. It's absolutely free. Become a Nez Nation Insider. Just give us your best email and you'll get everything, all the latest, up-to-date breaking news as they happen, where corporate woke media won't cover, mainstream media won't cover, right to your inbox. So go check that out down below. Check out these videos coming up on the screen right now. These are amazing. Subscribe, follow, and as always, may God bless you and may God bless America. I'll see you soon.